Well, it's that time again. Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk and Mapex Drums. I'm very excited to say that. I am here with, I don't know, this West Coast connection just keeps rolling. The one, the only Mr. Jordan Ziff. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic today.
And you're more than lovely is feeling better. We were supposed to do this last week and your girlfriend wasn't feeling well, so she's feeling better now?
All good. Yes, she's out to
Awesome.
coffee with a friend right now.
Well, that's good, man. That's good. So, again, your friend, my friend, Mr. Bobby Sisk. He's the ultimate hookup. He's been doing a lot of these connections, which is great. So I mean, you got a lot on the go. Well, you and I talked briefly yesterday on the phone, and we talked a couple times. But you've got your own band. You've got some other things. So what I'm going to do, I want you to tell my audience about your band first, because you're very busy with that.
Sure. So my band is called Hot Crazy, and it's really the whole reason that I moved to LA because, I was, playing with Ratt and all this stuff, and I was always living in Arizona and just traveling. So I never really needed to live here. But when the pandemic hit and I wasn't, on the road or anything like that, I decided I wanted to come here and start my own band. So that's kind of what brought me to LA in the first place. But it's very, the band is it's very Queen oriented, but it's heavier and it's more modern for sure. But I can't hide my Queen influence because that is just literally like my favorite thing of all time. Just tons of vocal harmonies and guitar harmonies and just big loud amps and shit. So I
Well,
mean,
at the end of the day, Jordan, why would anybody ever want to hide the Queen influence? What an amazing band.
yeah. Yeah, it's my favorite thing. So I've always wanted to do a band like that. And not that our band is like, if you listen to it, you're not gonna be like, oh yeah, this is like just sounds like a Queen thing, but it's really such a huge influence on me because I grew up in the world of loving just kind of more than I ever cared about guitar, I cared about bands that were like songwriters. So so I grew up with the Beatles and all that stuff. So I've just always been more into like songs and vocal harmonies and things like that. So it's kind of funny that I ended up being more of like uh, I hate to use the word shredder because like that word almost feels like uh, degrading in a way. But I've kind of ended up in that world a lot for some reason.
I do want to go back to that because you bring up a very good point. But before we do go to that, just give a shout out to the folks in your band.
Yeah. So my bass player, his name's Robbie Creasy, and he went to high school with me. So that's kind of that. He was already living here. So during the pandemic, we were actually hanging out a lot. He came back to Arizona. And so I was like, let's just start a band now. So we came here. He knew a guy named Carl, who's our singer, Carl Bean. He's amazing, amazing singer. And yeah, it's fucking awesome, man. Just a
So
really good band.
you mentioned shredder, and I mean it's one of those things where I guess if you play, a lot of notes on a guitar, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to be considered a shredder, whether you want to do that or not. But there's shredders, then there's shredder songwriters, and then it tends to be one or the other. Very few kind of meet in the middle, right?
Right.
And it sounds to me like that's your goal, is to kind of meet in the middle, to have the shred but have the songwriting and have the songs and be able to do kind of a 360. Is that a fair statement?
Sure. Yeah, that's totally a fair statement. I just it's for me, I like to be an all-around musician. I don't have one focus in any particular thing. Like it's all the instruments, it's everything. So guitar just happens to be the the thing that I can speak the most fluently with, I suppose.
And I find sometimes, I mean, like, I've played with some shredder guitar players, and um, some of them have been able to write, and some of them can play a million miles an hour, but they can never seem to write. They can, play other people's written pieces, but as far as writing themselves, that's a skill set that they don't really possess. Um,
Absolutely.
what any thoughts on why that might be?
Well, I mean, it's obviously going to be different for everybody, but I think people just focus on what they want to focus on. Like for me, the focus was never just actually, I take that back though. I think when I was younger, in high school and stuff, I was really focused on guitar, but it's just about where your focus is. I think some people never unfocus from, just, we need to practice and get this down and do this and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, my focus is purely in song crafting. And, if I go play with someone, how can I be the most valuable person possible? Not just, oh, I can play guitar, but it's like, be able to sing vocal harmonies kind of instantaneously and all that kind of stuff. So for me, that's where my focus is to be able to do all that stuff. So I think the people that are like really incredible guitar players, how could you not become that? Or yeah, like you have to be focused in that one singular thing, I think, to kind of become that, I suppose.
Sure.
Like on a technical sense, right? Because I don't judge, musicians necessarily just on their technical ability. It's like how they make you feel and how they speak with it, right? But like to be just like immensely technical, your focus has to be singular on that thing, if that makes sense.
100%. So I guess from the time you started and your influences to who got you to Hot Crazy right now, who are some of your guys that you go like, yeah, this guy, that guy, this girl, that girl, who would they be?
As far as guitar players,
Well, whatever, musicians overall, I guess.
I mean, obviously, since the Queen thing, Brian May has kind of been my favorite guitar player for a long time. But the funny thing is, Marty Friedman was my favorite guitar player when I was a kid because he was one of the first guitar players I heard. Like, I think when because I started playing guitar really young. I was like 7. And all I was doing really was playing. Well, Santana is originally what kind of made me play guitar, but that's a whole nother thing. But what was popular at the time was Blink 182 and Green Day and Sum 41. So I was really fixated on playing songs and being able to play with a drummer and be able to actually like not like, hey, how can I play like Eddie Van Halen or whatever? It was like I want to play in a band. So I played rhythm guitar. But anyway, so coming back to like when I was around 12 or 13 years old, that was the first time I actually ever really heard anybody like just rip on the guitar. Like Cacophony was like the first thing I heard where I was like, I didn't know people played guitar like that. That wasn't like, so I was already playing guitar for a while before I even like discovered the fact that people played guitar like that, which is kind of funny. I guess I was really oblivious to it, and so I think Marty Friedman is oddly enough sent me on this whole journey. And I obviously ended up playing in a band with him for a while, but I think in high school, like I was a huge Randy Rhoads guy too, because I just thought he was just so cool with the Jackson V and the polka dot V. Just like I guess when I was younger, I was so into the aesthetics of being a rock star, right? How could you not be? So I was really into Randy Rhoads. I was really into John Sykes. I was really into Warren DeMartini.
Mm-hmm.
I was really into Nuno. And yeah, I mean, and I guess like the way I play guitar, I feel like it's pretty, I feel like when I hear myself play guitar, I feel like all those influences are so obvious, like especially the Marty Friedman and the Nuno thing. And the way that I kind of play rhythm guitar, I kind of stole that from Sykes a little bit, just kind of like the chord vibrato and all that kind of stuff. So
right on. So you know what? We're just getting started. We're going to take a break. We're going to pay some bills. You got to do that on a podcast every now and again. It kind of sucks, but that's the way it is. So we'll be back with Jordan Ziff after this. Welcome back to Rimshots with Sean. I am here with Jordan Ziff, and don't forget to subscribe because that keeps us going, and we all like that. So just before the break, you had mentioned some of your influences, and you mentioned Marty Friedman, and and you had the pleasure of playing with him. I wonder what that. I talked to Chris Katera, who actually played with him at one point too. And
yes,
what's it like playing with a guy like Marty? Because anytime I don't know him, but anytime I've ever seen interviews with him, for somebody to be able to go to another country and learn another language as he did, and just kind of immerse him, he just seems like a very chill dude, a very intelligent dude. What's it like to play with that guy?
Yeah, he is very smart. I feel like we can talk about anything together. It's really crazy how well educated he is on so many subjects. But I think playing with him, I can't believe all the things I learned just kind of hanging around him and watching him play guitar. It's like you hear him play guitar, but then kind of when you're with him on a day-to-day basis and you're just watching it, you're kind of like going, oh, that's why you do that. It kind of all makes a lot more sense to me. So I think it's funny how much his playing style kind of rubbed off on me just being around him all the time, you know? So
Would your relationship with him when you play with him almost be, would it be uh, peer based, mentor based, a little bit of both?
definitely mentor based for sure. Like, I mean, he's just such a plethora of knowledge. So just being around him is so inspiring and educational. And I think it's really changed my mindset about everything, how I play guitar and just how I look at music in general.
And look, I'm a drummer, and I can appreciate when somebody is is a good player. And obviously, the Megadeth stuff was great. That Cacophony stuff was just lights out. I mean, him and Jason were really, really young too when those albums came out, like really young.
Yeah. Yeah, man, Jason is so talented, dude. And it's crazy. So the first tour I did with Marty, and I was, nervous to play with him because it's like I don't, I didn't know him that well before we started playing together. So you never know how someone's gonna be or whatever. Not that I assumed anything bad, but you just never know. And
Sure.
then started playing together. And on our first tour, we played a show and Jason Becker came out to the show. So just for me, like I said to you, the first time I heard people play like that on guitar was Marty and Jason. So, being I don't know how old I was at the time. I think I was probably 24, but to be on stage with Marty and then to have, Jason in the audience was just such a surreal moment for me as
Very
a
cool.
in
Out of
life.
curiosity, how did you get that gig? Because I mean, it's you think of obviously Marty Freeman's played with other people before, but I don't necessarily. And this is maybe me being way off base, but maybe when he goes out, he likes to have somebody there with him. But how did you get that gig? Out of curiosity.
Well, actually, it was basically through Chris Guitarro because I did a record with Chris, and Chris sent it to Marty, and Marty basically said, "Oh, I really like your guitar player. Do you think you'd maybe want to play in my band?" So it was really that simple. But Marty used to live in Arizona for like 10 years. So growing up in the music world, I kind of just met a bunch of people that were kind of mutual friends with Marty. Like in fact, Marty did a guitar solo on my first record that I ever did when I was like 14 years old because my producer was friends with Marty. So we had Marty play on it. But the funny, ironic thing is that when I played in Marty's band, I told him that story about him playing the solo on my album, and he remembered doing that, but he didn't know it was me. So it like had nothing to do with anything, It's just really funny.
And Chris Guitarro, I chatted with Chris last night. Great guy. I mean, he super funny, super upbeat and peppy. But what a resume. You're speaking to something that I'd love for you, and we'll talk about some of your other exploits here in a couple minutes. But a recurring theme that I've had on the show for a while is networking. You know, building a network, keeping a network, but being somebody that other people want to play with and want to have them in their camp. Speak to me about that a little bit, Jordan, because you strike me as the type of guy that really is kind of firing on all cylinders on that. You wouldn't get the gigs that you have had if you didn't have a good network and you weren't a good person to have in the fold.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, every time I'm out, I'm a pretty social guy. So I think a lot of the reason I get whatever gigs or whatever is just because some random person remembered me and was like, oh, like I like Jordan's guitar playing and he's a super nice guy. And then I get a phone call that has nothing to do with anything. And it's just like, hey, this guy recommended you. And it could be someone that I didn't even remember meeting. So it's really interesting. So the bottom line is just always be, I mean, I'm just a nice guy. So I don't have to try to be nice, but it's just the nicer you are and the more you go out and meet people, the more these kinds of gigs kind of come along. It's just all about people remembering you, right?
I don't think people can hear that enough though, because I think sometimes and at certain levels and I'm maybe thinking like, the YouTube player that thinks they're gonna put a bunch of stuff out in YouTube and then they're a complete asshole when you meet them and they're hard to deal with and whatever. And I think that people overlook the fact that it's a two-part or maybe three-part thing. Like being somebody like a lot of times, if I was talking to you and I was looking to audition, it'd be the hang first before the ability would even be there. And some people are good hangs and maybe their ability's not as good or two or three other people, but they end up getting a gig because they're such a good hang.
Yes, they get the gig. The cool person gets the gig. The one that people want to hang out with, man. It's literally, I mean, that's how it's always been. So, because no one wants to deal with someone who's great that's a prick. Like, it's not even worth it.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you hear all those stories about bands that are together for a couple of years, and it's just like the horror stories of the singer's an idiot or the bass player's an idiot or whatever, and it's really tough. And it you've been in situations probably like that before. I've been in those situations, and you got to share a stage and you got to share a hotel. It's just not fun.
Yeah, you do your best in the situation that you have.
It really, it
Don't
becomes a job, right? It becomes a job.
try not to ruffle any feathers.
No, we won't do that because we're not about that on the show. So in terms of Hot Crazy, so have you guys? And I know I talked to you a little bit about what you're doing there, but for my viewers, what are your plans with that band? Because it sounds like a very cool project. Hopefully, it's gonna, some songs are gonna get out there in a big way. You're gonna be playing live. What are the plans for that operation?
Yeah, we're kind of booking shows right now for the summer and for the rest of the year, but kind of we're mostly in writing mode because I mean we've only released 5 songs, I think. Yeah, like an EP, and then we just put out a single LA Party. I don't even know. Time goes by so differently now after COVID. I can't keep track of anything anymore. But
You're right.
I just want to say we released it like a month and a half ago or something. But I'm mostly in writing mode because I think we're still like such in the early stages of this band of kind of we love this, we love this, we love this, but like it takes time for all those ingredients to come together and go here, like this is what we are. And it's not a case of confused identity in this band. It's just like we just haven't recorded enough music together for us to all be like, this is 100% what it is. And that being said, I think our songs will always kind of be a little bit all, they all sound like they're from the same band, but another reason I wanted to do a band like this is because you can write a funk song and then you can write a blues song and then you can write a pop song, and it's like all can be in one band. I really hate the idea of being constricted to one genre because that is so, to me personally, it's so uninspiring to sit down to write and know that it kind of has to be like in this box.
That's a fair statement. We're going to take another break, and then we're going to be back with Jordan Ziff after this. Because man, is it sunny in LA today?
Actually, I haven't even been outside today.
So you're probably going to want to get out there soon and
Oh,
find
let
out.
me take a look. Let me take a look, dude.
We'll be back after this.
It's good. It's sunny.
Awesome. Well, time is going fast. Back with Rimshots with Sean, here with Jordan Ziff. So we were talking about networking and what have you. And I guess a question that I have, and we're not going to ask specifics, but a good guy or a good person that's an easy hang that has the ability, can they still make a good living in this business? Is it still available to people?
Yeah, man. This business will always be available to people, but it's just it's tough no matter which way you slice it. And you know what? It's always been tough. People talk about the industry, how is the way that it is today, and I agree. Like it's not the same as it used to be. But it's always been tough, and you really have to put yourself out there and you really have to go for it. And you really have to, the thing is there's a lot of musicians, I think, that are like, okay, but I also am going to college. Okay, but I'm also getting this job, but I want to be a musician. And it's like, as in the real world of being a musician, it's like, you can't do that. You have to have no backup plan, because when humans have backup plans that are easier, guess what they do? They always do that. Always. That's just human nature. Okay. So you have to be basically a psychopath, dude, to like make it in this industry, because you have to just not give a shit and just go for it. And whatever happens, happens, but you have to give it 100%. Otherwise, it's just probably, I mean, of course it could, but it's just probably not going to happen.
I love that. Um, so the Ratt gig, how did you get the Ratt gig? Because I mean, they and I'll ask you first the Ratt gig, but then the second part, that music, if you take that genre of music, it seems to be never more popular as it is now. I mean, it was popular in the day, and all of a sudden it's just like there's Monster of Rock Cruisers, there's this show and that show.
Yeah.
So two-parter, how'd you get the Ratt gig? Why do you think this music resonates so much today?
So I got the Rat gig because same shit I was telling you about earlier is I had a gig when I was in my early 20s with an original band I had back in the day called Age of Evil. It was like a thrash kind of hard rock band. I don't even know. Anyways, I met this guy, this drummer, his name's Joaquin, and I met him at this gig in Arizona. And I met him that one time, and that was it. And he's friends with Piercy. And so when they were looking for a guitar player, and this, mind you, this was probably almost 8 years after I met this guy, that to be honest, like I didn't really remember meeting him. He's such a sweetheart of a guy, but like I didn't remember meeting him. And so when they were looking for a guitar player, he recommended me for the gig. And that's it's that literally that's it. It's literally that simple.
Well, but that says a lot, right? Because what we were talking about before,
Yeah.
um, rarely do they remember the nice person. They remember the guy that spit in their shoes or freaking called them an asshole or whatever, right? So to
Yeah.
be able to have somebody remember you 8 years later and say, "Oh, call Jordan, he'd be perfect for the gig." I mean, it says a
Yeah.
lot about the about doing the right thing around people.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You just never know who you're gonna meet. So just, always be on your best behavior, as I
I
say.
love that. I love that.
I try to
Why do you
be.
why do you think that music's resonating as hard or maybe harder today than it ever has?
Um, that's a really difficult answer. I think the interesting thing is, I guess a little off topic of that is that I feel like all kinds of music today is resonating. Like it's kind of like a free for all of music now, like where every genre is cool and in. I think that young kids are getting into it, and so it's a fun experience. Now parents can bring their kids to go see those shows and stuff. I couldn't tell you why, but yes, it's totally making a comeback. I think guitar is making a big comeback, as far as like just like cool guitar playing and stuff. And obviously 80s music always had really cool guitar playing. So I don't know. I don't know that there's one simple answer, but I think that we live in a society now where like everything's cool,
Yeah,
because there was a time where like the 80s music went away.
yeah.
And now we're in a time where I feel like everything's cool. I feel like pop music's cool. I feel like grunge is cool. I feel like 80s music is cool. I feel like disco's cool. Like listen to pop music today. It's so disco influenced.
For
I
sure.
think I just think everything's cool right now. Like there's no so I don't know if it just I don't know. That's just my opinion. Like I don't know if it just pertains to 80s music, but maybe you have a different opinion about it.
No, actually, the one thing that somebody came back to me with, and I was like, good point, was a lot of the kids today that are in their 20s have parents that grew up on that music. And so they were inundated with that music when they were younger and they got to know it. And therefore, it might not be their first love, but they know it and they like it because their parents listen to it. And I was like, okay, that could be very, very valid.
Yeah. And it's good party music. It's always been good party music.
Well, rarely do you feel bad when you listen to that era, right?
Yeah. No, I love party music, man. I love that.
But I will say, as somebody that was a huge fan of that era, I think you mentioned that it kind of went away. I think it did have to go away because it was getting to the point where it was a little much. It was just like what is this thing coming out here now? It sounds like this song and that song. And
Yeah,
I think it needed a reset.
absolutely. I think music always needs a reset at some point. And I think people lose sight of that and they just like hated grunge so much. And it's like there was some grunge stuff that was really cool, but didn't want to necessarily accept it because everyone was kind of mad about like the 80s thing going away. But I like music needs a reset. The thing that sucked about, obviously I didn't live at that time, but the thing I would feel like sucked about it was that the 80s was such a party. And then that scene kind of went away a little bit, and regardless of the music changing, it's just like that party scene was forever changed. And that's that to me, that's the saddest part about it. Because, I love rock and I love the party scene and I love all that stuff. And it's just, it's not the same. And I don't know if it ever quite will be the same, but that's what my band Hot Crazy is such a like flamboyant, crazy band that it's like that's what I want to bring is the party. It's not just the music. It's like the whole thing around it is that it's supposed to be like a really fun time.
So is the scene out there in good old Hollywood, the old infamous former Sunset Strip, if they even call it that anymore? What's it like these days?
There's still a scene. I mean, there's still live music there. There's still, people living in the 80s there. Obviously not like what it used to be, but there is a good rock scene here in Los Angeles. Of course it's not what it used to be, but it's still alive and people still care and it's still a thing.
It's funny, cycles of music. So one of my favorite drummers growing up was Myron Grombacher that played with Pat Benatar. And I come to find out he's like one of the number one sales guys at the Hollywood Porsche dealership there now, probably making more money than he ever did back in the day. But that's kind of the pivot, out with the old, in with the new. That's just kind of the circle of life, right?
For sure. That's how it always will be.
Right on. So last question I have for you, sir, because I know you get stuff to do. You said you were cleaning and doing some stuff. My viewers, how do they
normal adult stuff today?
Yeah, that's right. How do they find out about Jordan Ziff and Hot Crazy and everything that you have going on?
Yeah, so you could go on Instagram, which is mostly kind of what I use to, keep everyone informed. So my Instagram is just Jordan Ziff as one word. Hot Crazy is Hot Crazy Band. And if you just follow those two things, you'll be super informed of what we're up to.
Well, I want to thank you for doing this, my friend. It took us a little while, but we got her done, and I will definitely be following you. And you know what? When the snow starts flying up here, I plan on getting out there. So hopefully we'll connect. It'll be great.
Yeah, let me know anytime you come out here, man.
Sounds good. Cheers, brother.
Cheers, dude.